Aggies, and welcome back for our second episode of Behind the Horns. I'm Assistant Sports Information Director Amanda Graham, here with my colleague Jake Nace, and we are so excited to introduce our next guest. His most recent pole vault performance set the national record in his home nation of Gibraltar. Please welcome Ben Power to the podcast. Ben, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for coming on to our podcast. This is our second episode with Around the Horns, and we appreciate you taking time out of your day, coming up here to our office and doing this interview with us.
So before we get into the details of your national records and everything else, tell us a bit about yourself. What year are you here? What's your major? Everything.
So I'm a graduate student here. I guess grad transfer is what athletes like to say. But I'm in the Masters of Management and Organizational Leadership program here.
So you're local to the Doylestown area and attended Central Bucks East High School right around the corner. Mm-hmm. Did that play into your decision in coming here for your fifth year at Del Val? And where did you previously run at before your time as an Aggie?
Yeah, so before Del Val, I was at Dickinson College out in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, central Pennsylvania. But I knew, because of Del Val being local to me in Doylestown, I knew that that was going to be one of the biggest factors in where I decided to go for a graduate school, where I decided to compete next. So it almost, I wouldn't say it was the only choice, but it definitely made everything easier. Del Val just being close to me, being kind of a hometown school in a way.
I'm a CB West grad, so I immediately don't like your school. But it's okay. I'll forgive it for the sake of this podcast. So you've only competed in 2 events here as an Aggie so far. We just kind of started the indoor season with, I believe it was 2 meets and then a little bit of a winter break. Yeah. But you've already broken the school's heptathlon record dating back to 2014 with a score of 3,404 at the Fast Times Before Finals meet at Lehigh. What was that moment like? Did you go in trying to break the record? Is it something you and Coach talked about? Was it on your radar, or were you just going to compete and then afterwards you were like, oh, okay?
Yeah, it was definitely on my radar. The previous record here was kind of, we had just a thrower who wasn't experienced with the events. I guess just to have a record, have the score. So I ended up breaking it in the 4th event of the 7th event. So it was actually pretty anticlimactic, I would say. But it was still then, in a sense, I knew it didn't matter unless I finished all 7 events. So it was definitely something that I was looking to get, and it was more kind of personally rewarding, I guess, to just see Coach excited for that, see the teammates excited for that. I think that's what made it special.
And with that, your mark in the pole vault as part of the heptathlon was 3.07 meters, which set a national record in your home nation of Gibraltar. So before we get into all of that, how it works, could you give us some insight on your family history and how did you end up in Doylestown coming from Gibraltar?
Yeah, so I'm able to represent Gibraltar through my dad. He was born in Gibraltar, and he met my mom in London, which was where I was born, actually. And then we moved to the United States when I was very young. You can tell by the way I sound. And kind of moved around the Northeast, and we ended up in Doylestown when I was around 11 or so. And then been here since, yeah.
So do you have any family that's still not in the States or somewhere else? Have you ever, I guess, been there, I guess, is the big question.
Yeah, I've spent a good chunk of one of my summers in Gibraltar. We'll visit for Christmases and stuff. It's been a while now, but I know I'll be going sometime in August to visit them, which will be nice because it's kind of been since COVID all happened, since I've been able to go back. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that.
And you kind of, when we talked previously before the podcast, you compared Gibraltar to our version of Puerto Rico, right? It's a territory of, I believe you said, the UK.
Yeah. I would say, I think that comparison also works because you think of Puerto Rico as very culturally different, particularly just in terms of the language. And that's, I think, a similarity that Gibraltar shares in that it's not so much anymore, but has been Spanish speaking predominantly, and that kind of just gives it its own unique stance as a British territory in that way.
So with the majority of your accomplishments obviously happening in the U.S., but showing up in the Gibraltar National Records, how does that kind of work? Do they have you on your radar? Do you have to submit yourself to some type of committee or organization? Do you submit your events and your, performances, or do they kind of have a handle on that?
Yeah, there's one guy that I keep in main contact with. I'll update him like if I think there's been like an event or something that they should know about. But once the season starts, I know that they also keep track of me. It's through the Gibraltar Amateur Athletic Association, is the governing body. So I reached out to them initially when I was interested in representing them. I looked up their eligibility requirements, saw that just through my father that would work, which I guess is pretty standard for most countries. And then, I just keep them updated.
Well, you do have a lot of accolades. Taking a look at some of your stats over the past couple of years, you have a total of 5 indoor records in the heptathlon, shot put, pole vault, high jump, and 60-meter hurdles, and 4 indoor records in the pole vault, decathlon, javelin, and 60-meter hurdles, all of which were set in the United States over the course of just the last year. When you decided to run in college, was this a goal of yours, and what does it mean to you to be the national record holder in so many events?
I wasn't really sure if it was a goal necessarily coming into college. I wasn't on a track team at first when I got into college. I actually ended up transferring to Dickinson to do that. So I think, especially when I think about the records, only one of those I actually broke, which was the javelin one. That was one that was held by someone before. All the rest I've just been like the first one to do it. So I guess for me it's kind of just like a testament to the opportunity that I've had. Because I know like I've been the first one for them to do it, and I know that it's a lot easier with like the NCAA system here to do those kind of sports, especially in an area as small with as limited resources as Gibraltar. When you get into the more like niche events like pole vault, it's hard to fund that, coach that, all those kinds of things.
Do you think with being kind of the first to set that, do you think it's helping maybe younger kids, right? If they go on and look and see like, oh, someone can do that, maybe I can do that. So maybe is there kind of another way? It's not so much for you, but are you kind of hoping to be a role model for people?
I don't know about role model, but I hope that they see that. And like a lot of my records, like, I have the pole vault one, but there's 3 other guys on this roster who are better pole vaulters than me. So I hope that they see that overseas Gibraltar, they see that and they want to be better, have like a better representation of that record, whether it's out of like inspiration or just out of wanting to be someone born from there, set the record there if they get the chance.
You want someone to break it.
I do.
It's a challenge.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So pivoting away from those accomplishments, let's just talk about being a student athlete for a second. What do you think the biggest challenge or lesson that you have learned trying to balance school and athletics? You've made it to grad school at this point. So what are some of the things that, you've faced in your time?
I guess as a student athlete specifically, I think the most important thing for me was to just understand that it wasn't the best for me to try to put like all of my value in myself as an athlete. I definitely was doing that around like my junior year, and I've been like super injured throughout my career, which then trying to put my value in myself when I'm competing poorly was obviously just going to be a recipe for not enjoying the academic side of school. And I definitely did struggle to enjoy the academic side of school. And I think maybe separating those two would have been more beneficial, to know that I could be successful in like the classroom, and then that would be just as valid as being successful on the track. I think putting the student before the athlete would have been more important.
Yeah, and your situation is very unique, and it's really cool to hear everything that you're telling us. And it's really interesting to hear from an outside perspective everything you've gone through. What advice would you give to athletes with origins in other countries about competing in the United States while still representing their home country?
I would say take advantage of the opportunity, take advantage of the NCAA system, whether it's, if you're good enough to go to Division I, do that, take advantage of whatever scholarship money you can get. NIL if you're that level, but Division III I think gives athletes like me the chance to kind of do what they want to do, maybe even without that pressure, which I think is also something that makes Division III special. You're kind of just doing it because you want to do it, because it means something to you.
It's less like a job. It's more,
Yeah.
because you truly enjoy it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Do you have any plans to continue to represent Gibraltar with your time as a, student athlete coming to a close at the national level, or, obviously outside of returning to visit family?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any intentions on, returning there or anything of the sort?
I think I would want to continue doing at least some kind of event as I get older. Maybe shot put, just because that would be easier on my body, given all the injuries I've been through. But yeah, I think I'd still want to keep competing. Maybe get a chance to go to the Island Games is one of their big sort of international competitions with other similarly sized countries or nations, territories. So it would be nice to maybe get that opportunity.
Yeah, and finally, what is your favorite part about track and field? What drew you towards this sport? Because it is a very hard sport. It requires lots of mental toughness, lots of preparation, good diet, hard training. It really is a very difficult sport to compete in, not just in the United States, but in any country. So what really drew you towards track and field and wanting to be a member of the track and field team?
I only joined track because I tried to make the basketball team my junior year of high school, and I was not a good basketball player. So the coach, when he cut me, told me I should join track or something like that. And that was what I decided to do. But I think it's just, I'm not a particular people person, but I think it's just easy to be around track people. Because I guess, like you said, like we're doing something difficult, but I think you generally think of track people as like smiley and positive and goofy and whatever, and it just makes all of the hard parts easier.
Yeah, and that really is interesting because track and field is an individual sport, so all the pressure's on you. If you have a bad day, that reflects on your performance. It's not like a team sport like soccer or basketball where if you have a bad game, your team could still win. It's all reflected on you because it's an individual sport. It makes you have to train harder. It makes you have to think to yourself, I need to do this, that, and that, because if I don't, it's going to affect my performance. So yeah, it very is a tough sport, and a lot different to a lot of team sports we see in the United States, where if you're not doing the right things, you have a bad game, or you just feel off, your team could still be able to win. But in a sport like track and field, it's all on you. So if you're not having your best day, it's going to reflect on your performance. So it really is cool to hear your perspective as an athlete in an individual sport, especially from another nation.
And let's just give you kudos for a minute, because you just said you got into track and field in high school.
Yeah.
And you're taking on the heptathlons, the like the most events, portions of it. Like, yeah, let me do a little javelin, let me do a little shot put, little running here and there. So you not only took on track, you were like, oh, well, if I'm going to do it, I'm going full bore here. So good for you. And, congratulations on all your accomplishments with that.
Thank you.
Before we let you go, we have some final questions that we like to ask our guests at the end of every interview. They're rapid fire questions, so we're going to run through them quick. You just have to give us the first answer that comes to mind.
Okay.
So, super simple, I promise.
Okay.
So, pre-meet meal.
Honey Stinger cookies and cream waffles.
Guilty pleasure show or movie.
Here Comes the Boom.
That's actually really funny. What are you currently binge watching?
Master Chef Canada.
If you were in a talent show, what would you do? You can't say shot put or javelin or any of those things.
I don't have many talents. Probably something with flexibility, if that counts.
Okay, it's not technically track, so I'll give it to you. Mm-hmm. What is your favorite sport outside of track and field to watch, and kind of what's your favorite team?
Basketball. I'm a Celtics fan, so this is a good time for me right now, especially after Bill Belichick leaving.
You're in the wrong region to be a Celtics fan. Who's an athlete that you look up to?
I mean, there's a lot. I'll say Marcus Smart since I just said Celtics.
If you could go to any sporting event, past or present, what would it be?
Probably Jesse Owens at the Big Ten Championships when he broke all those world records within like an hour or two.
And then what's a hobby of yours? Besides track, if you have one besides track.
Hanging out with my dog, I guess.
That's a good hobby.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again, Ben, for joining us. You know, we had a great time chatting with you, learning more about your career, what you've taken on, and, you know, how everything works with Gibraltar. And hopefully you guys get to get back there soon and see your family and everything else. So thank you again. That's all we have for today, Aggies. Thank you for tuning in. Episodes of Behind the Horns will be released monthly on Spotify and YouTube, so be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss any of the action.